From the entrepreneur's desk
to the industry front lines
and into real world operations.
I'm Aaron Cardell, joined by Kyle Hunter and Jake Hamilton, and we're here to take the pulse of real estate technology in just 20 minutes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to PropTech Pulse. Today, we have the fabulous Greg Robertson.
Thank you for using my Twitter moniker there, Kyle.
Well, Greg, we're happy to have you today. Let's start out, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've been in the real estate technology industry for about 30 years. I started my first real estate software company back in 1992, if you can believe it. We shipped software on 5.25 floppies and boxes, and now we went from boxes to the cloud, whatever that means. And but I've had about 3 companies in that time. My last company was W&R Studios. Our flagship product was Cloud CMA, and that's where we met. I sold my company, W&R Studios. My business partner Dan Woolley and I sold to Lone Wolf back in December of 2020, which seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
It sure does. But it was one of our greatest mergers, I think. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So we have quite a few questions today to go through, and I want to go through a kind of rapid session. But coming off last week, I had the ability to attend the inaugural MLS Reset, which I thought was a great event, and just a lot of good topics, conversation, a lot of things came out of it. And so, really just kind of piggyback on that, I'd love to talk a little bit about, the evolution and the future of MLS. But let's start out by, from your perspective, what is the current state of the MLS? Maybe over the past decade, how has that evolved and as far as the landscape?
Yeah, it's gone through quite a bit of changes. I mean, I've heard this, I said this on stage, but I think MLS has gotten we're in the MLS 3.0 stage, where MLS 1.0 was basically you had an organization, they had books, right? Where, had all the listings in a book, and, agents were basically gatekeepers of the data. You couldn't know what was on the market really. And so unless you saw a for sale sign in a lawn or you knew an agent, right? That to me is what I would qualify as MLS 1.0. MLS 2.0 is the advent of the internet. Right. So now listings are everywhere. Like Realtor.com was launched in 1995-ish, 96. And then Zillow about 10 years later. And now listings are everywhere. Agents are no longer the gatekeepers. And they've got to find out new ways of working that way. Right. And, we basically at that point also we're able to put the internet in the palm of our hands here with our mobile phones. And I think right now we're in MLS 3.0. Right, this third version, and that wasn't, the last version was brought to us by technology, the internet. This one unfortunately came to us because of a lawsuit in Missouri, right, and a subsequent settlement from NAR afterwards. So now what used to be the 2 pillars of MLS, which were cooperation and compensation now mandatory compensation is gone, and now agents and brokers have to find themselves how to do business in this new world where compensation isn't just a foregone conclusion. So that's how I kind of look at things right now. There's some other things there, but that to me is in a nutshell, they're high level.
Yeah, no, and I know that really disrupted all of the industries, beyond the MLSs, and obviously just the need to require, have the buyer broker agreement up front to even show a property, and just all the changes that agents or brokerages are having to navigate today. But with that said, maybe drill down a little further in what kind of the key challenges that MLSs are facing today. Now that they, one big component of that value proposition is gone away. What are some of those other challenges that they're looking to try to overcome today?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there are 2 pillars I think of an MLS were cooperation and compensation. Now that compensation is taken away, MLSs have to really focus on that cooperation aspect. How can they get these brokers together to cooperate together? If there's no, there used to be a carrot and a stick, and the carrot has gone away as far as being compensation. So what tools can they do? What things can they enact within their MLS organizations to really foster cooperation? cooperation to me is another word for community, for communication, right? So I think those are the challenges. And then you have the other thing that's a challenging that is really, coming to bear here is the market overall, right? I mean, we have an extraordinarily tough market. I mean, I think it was the lowest number of transactions. Interest rates rose higher and quicker than historically in 70 years. Affordabilities, most people can't even buy a home anymore. So there's, interest rates, as I said, went up. It's just challenging for all those things. And that kind of market fosters a lot of problems for brokers and agents. If there's less transactions, that's not a good thing for any of us, right? Especially those in the MLS world or in the vendor world that sells tools to agents, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess I saw where the housing units were that online with 1995, and so there was a lot higher population back then. So you're having to find more folks to do more things with. And I know that, obviously that comes with a lot of change. I was on with an MLS provider earlier today, and, there was 150 new members that were right there in the training. And so how are they able to continue to keep that demand up and, to make it important for membership to, retain at the levels that they're at?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I go to a lot of events, right? So I was at the Inman, New York Connect, and one of the speakers there was Mike Gilpredi, right? And he talked about the dichotomy of there's less transactions, but there's more of a pool of commissions out there because the houses that are in there right now are worth appreciably more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe back in 1995, or let's use a better example, 2019, maybe there was, 35 billion in commissionable dollars that you could get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though you can talk about the transactions getting lower, the number of things getting lower, the fact is, since 2019, the appreciation of the homes has gotten higher, which means the amount available for commissions is actually higher than it ever has been, right? So there's maybe less, but there's more to be making from less, if that makes any sense. So I don't know how that can factor anybody's strategies, but I always hate the doom and gloom of things, and I try to find some bright spots. And I heard that from Mike, and I'm like, well, we should share that with people, that it's not such a doom and gloom, right?
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, there's something in it that makes folks continue to join the industry, and we have to keep plugging along. So with that said, when you have these changes in the market, how are MLSs adapting to kind of the new demands of technology, the new things that are available to them, and really how that plays within the PropTech ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. For MLSs right now, they've been so mired in depositions and reading through legal documents because of the lawsuits. You can look back at 2024. Hardly any of them had any time to really introduce any new tech or try to, or get anybody's attention. And that goes for the same thing for vendors like Lone Wolf or some other companies, of getting their attention, because they've been so focused with those lawsuits. Now that the settlement is enacted, it's a brand new year. I hope we'll see a thawing it out there. There are some people that are saying that there's going to be more transactions this year, maybe not a lot more, but at least more. Maybe we'll see some thawing out of some more innovation and new companies coming up online, or there has been a lot of new innovation. I know you guys have done a lot of new innovation, but it's hard to get anybody to pay attention because they've been so mired in all these legal battles, right? Even the brokerages, a lot of brokerages had the same kind of lawsuits. So for them to focus on like somebody coming out with some new technology, it's been tough. And I hope that 2025, I should say, thaws things out so that we can begin to kind of look towards the future again in regards to technology and other things.
Yeah, no, and I to your point, I've spoke with a few industry leaders, mostly in the franchise world, this year, that really they're turning the page. Let's move forward. There was election, there was Cissa Burnett, there was all the different things that were just creating chaos last year, and obviously with the market, now it's really focused on, okay, how do we go forward? How do we move forward and continue to grow our brands, grow our market share? With that said, what are MLSs? There's a lot of changes. Whether it's Phoenix trying something new, or Alabama, or different MLSs. What are some of the innovative ideas that you're seeing from MLSs to really pivot and change the way that they are working to increase value to their members?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two things out there, right? Number one would be MLS are starting to do what I would call like MLS-led technology initiatives or MLS-owned things, where they have hired their own developers and they're developing their own software. They're becoming their own software companies. Before, they would license software technology solutions from other vendors. Some of them are becoming vendors themselves, where they not only create software for their own use, but they'll go out there and try to sell it to other MLSs. Kind of this like built for MLSs for buy MLSs for MLSs kind of thing. So you see a bit about that. You see in MLSs making investments in some other vendors, and this hasn't happened for a while now, but you've seen that before because they've seen some prop tech vendors go on to have success by being acquired, and they want to participate in that. It's just going to be interesting to find out, like anything else, selling and creating your own technology. It makes, the grass is always greener. You think like, oh, I can control this and I don't have to deal with these guys. I can do it myself. Well, there's challenges to that too, right? And when things screw up, the big target is on your back, not anybody else's, right? So you have to make sure that you're doing the right thing for your members and everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it as good as I do. Technology, and a lot of people have great ideas, and then as soon as that idea comes to fruition and you have a solution, there's 100 other ideas on how to make it better and how to continue to maintain. And it's just a never-ending saga of keeping up with the new technology, and then you have to support it and you have to keep it running. And I think a lot of times, that's challenging, and it's why we love to partner with MLSs and associations to drive membership. With that said, though, what would a modernized MLS look like? So if you were able to start today with the landscape that we're in, how would you think about that?
Got a modernized MLS, right? I mean, that's interesting. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, when you say modernized, right? A lot of people just think of an MLS as a listing platform, right? Mm-hmm. It's a database of listings and photos and virtual tours, just a database or a listings platform. What people forget is like an MLS is a broker cooperative, right? So the modern MLSs now, the challenges that MLSs are facing now are really more policy and political, right? So there's a big movement called Clear Cooperation, which, because it's a broker cooperative, there's a rule that says if you want to market your public or your listing publicly, you have to put it on the MLS within 1 day. And that's causing a lot of riots from some bigger brokerages, national-wide brokerages, of like, they want to do, they want their cake and eat it too, right? They want to be able to participate in all the great things that MLS does, but they also want to, have their own exclusive stuff too. And that goes against the spirit of what an MLS is, a broker cooperative is. So if you're saying what a modern MLS is, would be less focusing on the technology side, but how do we solve these kind of real problems of brokers' business models out there, right? And the problem I see too is that we've had such a prolonged, proactive like a cycle of being a seller's market. And that's why we have all these kind of talks about pocket listings. When it goes to a buyer's market, well, everybody wants whatever they can do to get it sold, they're going to get it sold. But now that they can kind of, maybe hide it for a little longer or have these pocket listings, you're just seeing these new business models of saying they're not new, right? But they're, they've been around a while, but they've been out there longer because of this kind of elongated cycle for many reasons. You could say COVID, you could say supply, you could say, a lot of different things, right? Or even back to the GFC. But the market's going to turn, and it always turns. So I'm just hoping if you're a modern MLS, you've got to like the things you want to do are come up with strategies to, keep everybody cooperating and working nice together, right? Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? No, let's not change all our rules for the market today, and then when we discover later on, when the market shifts, that there's nothing here that's going to help us in the other times too, right? So that's what I think about. Like modern MLS problems are more those types of issues than really technology.
Yeah, no, it's makes sense, and I think that modern MLS will change. But let's talk about the future then. What do you think there's going to be consolidation in the MLS landscape? Like, is that something you would project in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I always say this: there's 522 MLSs. There's 1.5 million realtors in the United States. It might be 1.49 now. I don't know. It's a little bit less. But of the 522 MLSs, the top 23 represent a million of those 1.5 million realtors, right? So it's a very long tail, as they say, right? I think if I remember correctly, of those 500, 250 of those MLSs have less than 500 members apiece, right? Think about that, right? You have some MLSs that maybe only have 200 or 100 people, right? So consolidation is tough because a lot of times they're really kind of resort towns or small areas, and they don't really see a need for joining. So yes, I think there'll be consolidation, but I still think there's going to be some number of them that are just going to be independent. There's going to be always Aspen and Vail. I think they, in my mind, they're the same. I mean, I think I've been to one of them, and anybody from Aspen and Vail could tell me I'm crazy because they're so different. But why would you have? So I don't know. I mean, yes, there'll be some consolidation. When I started, I think there was over 750 MLSs. It's down to 522. But again, I started a long time ago, and that shift is going to take a long time.
Yeah. Well, and then continuing on that thread, if they're not consolidating, talk to us a little bit about the data sharing models and policies, because I know that was part of that big discussion of does that continue? Do you pull back on that? How does that? Where do you see that falling?
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made whether data shares hurt or help or MLS consolidation, because it's really coming from the brokers. If you're a broker doing business in Colorado and you have to join 17 MLSs to kind of do business, it's ridiculous, right? So a lot of times these data shares can help with brokers that, okay, well, at least I can go to one place and they've shared data and I can go into one platform, right? But that also kind of drops the impetus for MLS to go out after each other, because, the data's there. It's kind of a Band-Aid, really, but still it's workable. And, they got that out of the way, right? So, some people have been calling for MLSs to compete more, right? To really, that would be really, but I think in the end, the brokers are going to, if a broker just to, an MLS, if they wanted to be a bit more aggressive, they could drop a data share, right? But their brokers would be the most, their own members would be the pissed off the most. Like, I don't care about you guys merging. I just wanted to be able to do business. I want to be able to go one place and search for listings that I can sell or, help my clients buy, right? I mean, I think it's really tough to kind of make that work all together. It's not as easy as people think.
Yeah, I know what I mean. I think if you're in one of those markets where you are having to log in and really go into different places to find what you're looking for, and you don't have easy ways to access that, you're just adding a ton of layers and frustration to that whole process. And so,
yep.
Totally understand. And then money. A lot of those you're having to pay for those individuals. Yeah, that'll be interesting coming down the pipe. Got a couple more, time for a couple more. One, I'd love to understand your take on the broker of choice implications. So, whether or not you are, participating in the association and how that relates to your membership in the MLS, and the point of a lot of the MLSs are starting to look at ways that they can, allow for that access without actually being a member of the association.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's happened in a lot of places what they call Thompson states, where you don't have to be a member of the association or in order to join the MLS, you can have an MLS only account. And I think because of the lawsuits that some people might deem that necessary to separate themselves from the MLS association there. But that's can be hard for associations because the association was then first, they started the MLS to help them with their business model, and they're kind of symbiotic, right? To tear them apart, they weren't really set up to do it that way. They weren't really set up to be separate. So it can work in some areas. In other areas, it's going to be very difficult. So no matter what happens. So I think it's just going to be, we're going to have to see what happens in different markets, but it's a market by market thing.
Gotcha. Last question. Data ownership and control. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about that. Whose data is this that is coming in? The broker, the MLS, the consumer, the franchise? What is your general take on that discussion?
My general take is the broker's data, right? I mean, but there's different things between the data itself and the compilation of that data, right? So sometimes the MLS can claim to have a claim over the compilation of all that data, right? So it goes that way. But I mean, most MLSs and associations are set up where data license is that you have to sign data license to do anything, right? So, and those data licenses cover what you can do and what you can't do. So there's already things in process in the way that you do things that really answer any questions that people might be fearful of.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I know from the broker side, obviously that's their take as well, but there's a lot of things that can be done and a lot of value that can be derived from all of that. So last one, what's some key takeaways that you would have from the MLS space for this audience?
Yeah, I mean, for MLSs, I think for anybody, I mean, at Cloud CMA, at W&R Studios, I mean, our thing was always, the best marketing is having a great product, right? I mean, when you have a great product, marketing takes care of itself. I mean, I do a presentation that's called Be So Good They Can't Ignore You, right? So focus on the things you can control, only compete with yourself, and I think you'll be all right. All the other stuff is just nonsense. It's just noise, right? I mean, just try to be a better organization. Use what you have to be better. I mean, use your people, use your tools, use everything you can to be better. And if you keep focusing on making a great company, a great product, a great place for people to work, you're going to do great.
Well, Greg, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you having you on PropTech Pulse.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
That's our pulse for today.
Keep innovating,
Keep implementing.
And keep moving real estate forward.